All right, so we're going to start with just some basic script execution. So this is places that you can write code and have it happen when certain events happen in the game. So one very simple one that's going to kind of be there whenever you make a new script is the start function. So this is just called when the object's brought in. It's good for kind of setting things up with that object. So when we hit play in the game, you're going to see this little message come up here. So I've just attached that execution script onto the cube. I'm going to hit the play button, which means the object is being brought in and it's going to run that line of code. Fairly simple there. We also have update. This one is going to happen once every frame. So if I type in debug.log, let's just say updating, that one is going to happen quite often. So if we hit play here, you probably won't even see the other message now. It's just going to be overloaded with this one. So that happens very, very often. So you want to be careful what you put in there. You want to make sure that type of code is optimized and absolutely necessary. So usually things like movement are going to go in update. Now we also have on destroy. This is going to be whenever the object is removed. So it's good for just kind of unsubscribing or kind of like death particles, that type of thing. Things that happen when the object is, when you're getting rid of it. Now we have colliders. So this is when one object collides or enters a trigger. So collision is a different thing. That's when you have kind of hard surfaces and they're actually like knocking into each other. We're going to cover triggers in this video. So that's kind of like a box that you can trigger into, and so you can go into it and leave it, almost like a trap detection or maybe a hidden thing in front of a door or something like that. So these are built-in Unity functions. This is part of the API, so you got to make sure that's spelled correctly. These aren't something that I've made up. So if these are on a script that also has a collider on them, they are going to be triggered when something goes into it. So one of them is enter. That's when you kind of enter the collider. Exit is when you leave the collider, and stay is when you're still in it. So I'll just show you how that works in the inspector here. So first, the setup. The cube is the thing that we are going to collide with. So we're going to move this sphere into the cube. So you want to have that cube or whatever the thing is going into with a collider marked as a trigger. So this little box here has to be ticked. Then you want to have the script on the same object as that collider. Now the thing that's going into it is going to have a collider as well. And this one is going to need a rigid body. Now I've just put is kinematic here just so it doesn't fall through the ground when we're testing. So if I hit play, go to scene view here, you'll notice on the bottom left here, there's going to be one message that pops up as it enters the box. And then right now, technically every frame, it would be saying that this sphere is in the box, so that on trigger stay would be constantly updating. I just didn't type it in because it would kind of spam the screen. And then when we take it out here, you see we get the left the box. So the enter and exit just happen the one time when it enters and exits until you enter and exit again. So if I do this again, we're going to get those two once more. Okay, so next we can do some input. So this is an older, kind of a basic input system, but it's just to kind of get the idea across. So if I hit a button, some code is going to be run. So in this case, I've specified the one key and the one button pressed, this little message will pop up. So to do that, let me just stop that there. We're going to put that in update. So it's checking every frame to see if the user has clicked some kind of a key. And we'll just do that again. Okay, so whenever I hit the one key, this little message pops up. So I can press that a bunch of times. There we go. And I could obviously switch that to any key or mouse or whatever. Okay, the last thing I want to cover is coroutines. So if you want something to happen on a bit of a delay or an update, but you don't want it every frame, you can use coroutines. So they give you access to this yield return wait for seconds, which means it's going to wait that amount of seconds before running the next line of code. So to do one of these, you just declare an IEnumerator. It's kind of just like a standard function apart from that. You can use this line of code here anywhere that you want, and you can specify as many seconds as you want. You could do even a decimal, like 0.4 seconds, because that's a float. So what this is going to do, it's going to wait 1 second and then run this code. Now if this loop wasn't here, it would just finish and the coroutine would be done. But I've put a loop in while the condition is true. It's just going to wait 1 second, run some code. But since we're in a loop, it's going to do it again. So it's going to wait another second, run some code, and just keep doing that over and over until this condition is no longer true. So that's kind of handy if you want that like clock effect, just to do that. So in order to actually start that function or to call that function, you're going to have to do this. So it's called start coroutine and then just the name of the coroutine. So it's a bit different than calling a normal function. So that's it for some just basic execution. Things like the input system, you're probably not going to be using this one, but just kind of a way to get the general idea.